Hello, welcome back to another eventing vlog. I actually forgot to film the intro this morning, so we have done the event, but this is Barbury Castle Cotswold Cup 90. I will show you now the dressage test and then go on to the show jumping and the cross country before coming back to here to round up the rest of the video. So I went down to the dressage arena. I was slightly on a slope, which was a bit frustrating as Gus has no back shoes on and his front shoes were quite worn. He actually had new shoes 3 days after this event. I also didn't plait. Controversial opinion, but you don't get any extra marks for plaiting. Although if I did have more time, I definitely would plait. So I have no issue with people plaiting. It's just having a toddler and working full time has meant I'm very time poor at the moment. I came down the centre line. We scored a 6.5 for this. The judge wanted more of a supple turn, which I think is a very fair comment. We then scored another 6.5 for our trot up the arena. Obviously, he was trying to evade being in the contact, which is completely understandable. I then received a 6 for this half circle. He was unbalanced and he needed more of a supple bend, before then getting a 6.5 for this half, which I think is fair because it was slightly better than the first half. For our canter, which I was glad to have picked up the right leg, we did get a 6 because we were unbalanced and he was obviously slipping with his lack of back shoes. Rest of the canter around the arena, I got a 6.5, and she wanted a more supple horse, which again is absolutely fair. You can see there that he's evading my contact and trying to run away from me. We then got a 7 for this half circle, which I was pleased with, again because you can tell that he is listening a bit more to me, before then getting a 5 for this half circle, which again, I think slightly to do with the horse going past the arena, but it's just one of those things. Unfortunately, we then got a 3 for this, and there's no guessing as to why that happened. We picked up on the wrong leg. His right side is so much weaker at the moment, and it's something that we're definitely working on. He was just very unbalanced in general, and then as you can see, he's trying to motorbike away from my hand and around the corner. So we got a 6 for the rest of the canter work before coming back to a trot now. You can see he rushed straight into the trot, which was understandable. His canter is weak. However, I was really pleased that for this walk, we actually scored a 7, and we only scored 2 7s on the whole test, and this was one of them. And I was really chuffed. We've not done a lot of walk work in our dressage training, and I should also add we have only had one dressage lesson. So I was pretty chuffed with this because I just felt that he did okay, and he did lengthen and he did what I asked him to do. As you can see, he's slightly distracted towards the end at looking at what's going on because he definitely knew that the jumping was ahead of him, and I could feel him getting more and more excited. We then get a 6.5 for this next movement. The comment was that he was hurried to trot, which I think goes for the entire test. Before then getting a 5 for that half circle because he was drifting over his shoulder, and a 6 for the halt, which again, good halt. I was pleased with that halt. Moving straight on to the show jumping, we didn't do many practice jumps. I was very conscious that the ground was really hard. I actually only did the cross pole and the upright. I didn't jump the spread. I have a bit of a thing about spreads show jumping anyway. And I just thought I wasn't going to push myself because I didn't want to scare myself before we went in. He was really good and he really came back to me, which I know that looks like he's chipping another one in, but I've had to really work on myself in terms of not kicking him for a long stride, which I do a couple of times in the round. From all my hunting and all my other experience, I've always pushed for a longer stride over chipping one in. And so my takeaway is, I'm so pleased with how I'm able to just let him get closer to fences, and we're really getting ourselves together in terms of having a collected canter. Now here we have an annoying pole down. I actually did hit him down the shoulder with my stick, and he really is not a fan of a whip. But I just felt he needed it because he really wasn't listening to me, and annoyingly it caused him to rush forward to that fence and just take out the front bar with his front legs. But for faults, I was not complaining. You can see here my old habits start getting the better of me, and I just see a long stride and I think, yeah, go for it. And he obliges. And at this point I thought, let's not get back into this bad habit. Let's get a nice collected canter again. And he did come back to me. He did do a couple of head in the air movements, but I was overall really pleased. I then went straight onto the show jumping. We had about 25 minutes between the show jumping and cross country. So it was a fairly quick turnaround, and I was last person on course in my section. So I'd already done 1 and 2 by this point. That was fence 3. He was absolutely bowling on, and in my head I was telling myself to go really steady because the ground was really hard, and I was not aware that Gus covered the ground quite as well as he did. So you can see there that he tried to tow me slightly into this combination. But I actually was really chuffed that we got a nice 6 strides, and he was listening to me when I was trying to get a collected canter for a combo. Yeah, he was fab, and the course was lovely. The ground wasn't too bad. Obviously it was hard, there's no getting away from that, but the grass cover was really good, which allowed quite a lot more energy for their legs. I then thought, right, it's the water coming up, and I will just let him take it slow. The water was also really, really blue. So I thought, okay, we're just taking this course slowly. I'll bring him back to a trot. He can have a little walk. I'm not too worried about the time. I actually nearly rode without my watch on because I just thought I really don't want to know about the time at all. And I didn't check my watch whatsoever until 3 jumps from home. So you'll see in a minute when I do check my watch. This jump I was slightly nervous about because when we were walking the course, someone had a refusal, and for some reason things like that really get in my head and I really struggle with it for my confidence, but he absolutely pinged it, so I was chuffed. I hadn't actually walked this fence, but saw it from afar because I cut the corner off when we were walking the course. He flew it with no problems, and then it was a downhill canter to the next fence, which again was a standalone fence. And you will see what I mean in terms of I just let him bowl on, which is our hunting experience showing through, especially for the next fence where I kick him for a long stride. He is such a good boy. Then the next fence, again, when we were walking the course, I actually saw 2 people have stops at this fence. And again, because I was thinking, right, I'm taking it really slow, I'm not worrying about time faults, I brought him right back to a trot and trotted this downhill. It was still pretty substantial, but I just knew he would be fine for that height. And then a nice canter down to the second jump. They were actually numbered separately, and it was quite a undulating kind of, it's not a combination, but between the 2 fences it was quite undulating. Then had a really good gallop up this hill, weaved in and out of the stone that you can see on the screen now to get the correct line for this combination. And this was categorically the fence that I was the most scared of when I walked the course. So it was a 2-strided double, and he's just not giving me absolute confidence when it comes to skinnies. I think we're working on it. He's been absolutely fantastic, but I think we just need to really click to get the confidence up for myself for skinnies. This, he flew over. I was really, really chuffed with him. And then the next fence that comes up is another combination, which I think I was so relieved to get over the previous one that I was not that worried about this, but I could feel that he was, in my hand, so I just brought him back to a nice trot and just popped it, which was lovely. And I was just really chuffed. He just didn't question me. He knew what I was asking. And at this point, I then checked my watch and go on then, we can make it. And I gave him a good old kick up the hill, to the last fence, and we came in 5 seconds inside the time, so we got no time penalties, which I was slightly shocked with because I was so convinced we were going so slow. I then put on my Equi and Ice bandages for his legs. They are brand new. I actually got them brand new off Vintage, so I was really chuffed with those as I had a bit of a bargain. We had a very quick pizza before heading on home. So I'm going to interject here to say that this morning I wanted to withdraw, yesterday I wanted to withdraw. I was so nervous, and I basically was using the fact that we haven't had any rain as an excuse to not go. But anyway, we have been, and we are now on the way home. It's over a 2-hour journey for us, so it's a fair trek, including having the dog and the baby in the back. So it's an all-day event, but Gus was such a good boy, and I'm really chuffed with how we've improved, so yeah, well worth it. So thanks for watching today's vlog. Our next event is Solihull 90, so I'm going to try and fit in a dressage lesson and maybe a couple of rounds of show jumping. Overall, I'm really chuffed with Gus. He tried so hard. Obviously the ground was pretty tough for them going wise, but he coped really well, and there was really good grass coverage, and I'm hoping to get some back shoes and maybe some stud holes put in for my next